Boom! Welcome back to another episode of Unbreakable Confidence. I got my good friend Natalie here. And if you don't know Natalie, you're about to find out. But let's go ahead and give a little bit of background information on her. She's a physical therapist out of Birmingham. She's been a PT for about 11 years. She did her student undergrad in athletic training. So she was a student athletic trainer at Bama. Is that right? University of Alabama? Yeah. And then she's got an interesting, I think this is the connection with her and I, is she's got a target, if you will, in terms of she was a former gymnast. And so kind of really hones in on certain assessments and different things like getting the gymnast rehab back. We'll get into that here. But first and foremost, thanks for jumping on with me. I feel like I've been bugging you about this for quite some time, and finally we honed it in.
Right. Yeah, I ran out of good excuses, so here I am.
You can't avoid me for too long. There's only so much time before text messages just keep coming and coming. So my first question for everybody is, so I genuinely believe, like, as people, as individuals, whether it's within our career, whether it's as people, that we have like our own unique abilities, what I term is like our own superpowers. So for you, what would be 1, 2, maybe 3 that you would define as like what makes you unique as a person or as a PT, or what are like your superpowers?
Okay. I guess as a physical therapist, we all kind of go through the same general training with school. They kind of teach you a little bit of everything, let you, hone in on the areas that, are most interesting to you. And for me, I did gymnastics growing up. I did it for 13 years. I coached some, through college and high school even. And then, became a PT and wasn't really involved with the sport at the time, but, quickly found that that's something that I could get into, and really just like fell back in love with the sport that I had, kind of gotten disconnected from. And so I think that's one thing that I love as a physical therapist of, I am able to use my past experiences and help gymnasts today with their therapy and rehab, and just really be able to relate to them in a way that, someone that had never done the sport, wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. How important is that? Because I feel like that's like the common theme with everything in terms of like step one is like being able to build like that relationship and that trust and connection. So like having that background, do you find that like, obviously, is that of value for you? Or, is it something that they know, or do you have to like talk about that coming in and that like help and deepen that connection, or how's that go with you?
Yeah, so I definitely think it's important. Gymnastics especially is, a different sport. Like a lot of people don't know a ton about it. And, especially when you get down into like skills and, actually what a practice entails for a gymnast. Most people really have no idea what that looks like.
Right.
And so I think the average person wouldn't be able to give specific, recommendations to both the gymnasts, the coaches, the parents, as far as what can they do, what can't they do, and just like truly understand those things and be able to go step by step with them. And so I think that's something that has been very beneficial. And, once you start speaking their language, like you kind of have that instant connection of like, okay, I trust this person.
Yeah. Was that like when you first got going, did you immediately jump in? Like, did you know that that's what you wanted to target, or did it just kind of like happen? Like one came and you're just like, oh shit, like maybe I should like really start like targeting in and honing in on this. Like, how did that evolve for you?
Yeah. I think that, it wasn't something I necessarily had planned, going into school. It's just something, that after I had graduated, and started working, I was just seeing, and I still see, general population, a little bit of everything. But when I would get those gymnasts, that's where I really would like dive in and, feel my passion for that. And so that's kind of where I decided to, try to focus in on and, build that practice as much as I could just because it's something that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. What is kind of the ratio for you in terms of like gym pop versus, do you have
Right.
other athletes too, or is it more predominantly gymnasts?
I do. I have athletes of all kinds. I love football in general. So like I
Yeah.
love treating football players as well. But yeah, I treat a little bit of everything, a lot of different athletes, which is fun too, like trying to learn their sport. I don't naturally know all the ins and outs of every other sport like I do gymnastics. But yeah, I love treating it all. And I treat people who aren't athletes, but maybe their sport of the day is being able to walk up and down their stairs.
Yeah.
So I can do a little bit of everything as far as ages and different activity levels and stuff. So that keeps it interesting too. Of just you never know what you're going to see each day.
Yeah. What percentage of gym pop do you have?
Oh
50%
goodness,
more?
I feel like it varies a lot throughout the year. Depending on. I feel like it comes in
People
waves.
get hurt.
Yeah, the coaches would prefer that my answer be zero.
Yeah.
So sometimes that is the case. Sometimes it's a very healthy month, but then sometimes you got 4 and 5 rolling in from the same gym in the same month. So
Sheesh. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
what and I want to talk about this because I don't know a lot about this in terms of is I know that like you'll have to educate me a little bit too. Did you develop so you do these assessments with a lot of the gymnasts? Is
Yeah.
like my first question would be like, is this something that like you developed on your own, that you put together and being able to walk into a gym and basically knock on the door and say like, hey, like here's a system and a process that I've built. Over the last year, I've seen way too many, of girls, boys, whoever within your gym that I wanted to. I feel like we can like hone in and like knock down some of these numbers if we can catch things
Right.
before they're happening. Obviously, you're not going to be able to get everyone. It's kind of the same, in my world too, in terms of like the whole strength and conditioning thing. It's like to be able to prevent the injuries, right? Like that's like one of the
Right.
predominant things. So is it something that you have like developed, and like how did you develop that? How did you like formulate like your own system?
Yeah. So I actually have a great mentor in the gymnastics PT world. Her name's Marla.
Shout
And
out.
so, what'd you say?
I
Yeah,
said
shout out Marla.
shout out Marla.
Yeah. Yeah. And so actually she developed the screening tool that I use with
Okay.
my gymnast. And so she has taught me all of that. And then I have implemented it here in Alabama. And so that's something that, like I'll go into the gyms and talk to them about. I typically ask to have like a parents meeting just to kind of explain it all to them. And really, like if you sit down and look at it, it's pretty solid as far as being comprehensive. I mean, it's looking at their flexibility, their strength, their range of motion. There's questions on there regarding nutrition, mental health, and so it really does look at the whole picture of the gymnast. And provide them with awesome resources that are individualized and practical for them to be able to use going forward.
So was this like, when did you start utilizing this assessment? Like at what point did you learn this from her?
Yeah.
And maybe even like, what was it? Marla.
Yeah.
Sorry, Marla. How did you was this somebody you knew before? Somebody introduced you to you, or like, how did you meet? And then at what point did you start like implementing this in terms of like, so for instance, you've been a PT for almost 11 years. Was this right off the bat? Was this halfway through? When did you kind of start this process?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but I'd say probably about halfway through.
Yeah.
Is kind of when we connected and just connected over our similar interests in gymnastics. And she was already seeing a lot of gymnasts, and so has been great for me to bounce ideas off of. But she actually flew down to Alabama.
Oh wow.
We met. She taught me all of this and kind of helped me the first time we did it at a gym. Helped me walk my way through it. And so then now, so I started off doing it once a year with gymnasts. But now we have started implementing it twice a year. So once a year, we're doing the full assessment of, everything I just said, going through all that with them. And then 6 months later, we're going in and doing a follow-up assessment. And so everything that they had deficits with at that 1 year mark, we're going through reassessing, seeing what they've gotten better with, seeing what they still have issues with, and then, progressing their exercises at that point to help them, with whatever still remaining.
Yeah. So can they come to you for this too?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if I have a lot of them, I will go to the gym and just, on a Saturday, knock out all the girls at the gym.
Yeah.
But if it's just, like an individual, they can come to the clinic with me, and, it can be done there as well. So either way.
So what are some of the most, it's interesting because I didn't know it was as comprehensive as what you said in terms of, because I want to get into the whole like mental health side of things in a second, but in kind of each scenario, maybe from a like physical health, even like maybe put a different bucket in terms of like nutrition, and then a different bucket in terms of like mental health. What are some of like the most common themes that you see?
Okay, let's see. So if we're talking about physical, I would say 99% of gymnasts have stiff upper backs.
Yeah.
Which ends up leading to some, low back issues.
Yeah.
They have limited ankle mobility, which can work its way, up and down the chain. Those are definitely probably some of the top like physical limitations that I see.
Yeah.
Weak hips are common. So those would be as far as that goes. As far as like the mental health side, some of the questions on there with that are just talking about like the pressure that they feel. Do they feel pressure from parents? Do they feel pressure from their coaches?
You can be honest, they be checking yes on the parent boxes.
Right. Yes, for sure. So yeah, so some of that stuff, just kind of diving in, with them on that to see if it's something that, sounds normal or sounds like it might be of concern. And kind of same with the nutrition, it's asking about, do they feel pressure as far as like their weight? Do they feel like they're at a good weight? Do they have questions about eating and what they should be eating? And, obviously the mental health and the nutrition part, that's not my specialty. But I can, screen them to see if that's something that I think, they need to talk further with another professional.
Yeah. Or even so, it's like, I feel like you're knowledgeable enough to like at least guide, right? It's like, even when people like call, like literally got off the phone with somebody, was like, my child needs something with nutrition. And it's like, hey, like I'm not a registered dietitian, but like I have enough knowledge and background and like being involved in like that world of being like, Chick-fil-A every day is probably not the best idea.
Probably not the answer, yeah.
Maybe we should start with 3 days a week. Like,
right.
So how like in depth do you go with the mental health side of things?
So really with that, it's just kind of a yes or no question on there with the mental health.
Yeah.
And so, if they do say yes to some questions, I'll just kind of try to get a little bit more from them to, like I said, kind of see like how deep it is. Like, is it something that sounds like, it may just be normal pressures of competing in a high level sport? Or is it something that really like, I guess, hinders their ability to perform,
So with obviously like the whole theme of the podcast and everything be circled around like confidence and like creating your own identity and like developing like the life that you want, not that your parents or your coaches or anybody else want. And so I guess like how, because to a certain degree, like if they're coming to you, even though it is in terms of like PT and like, like prehab and things like that. But to a certain degree is like, you're their own mentor at a certain level. And so like, how much, like, do you converse with them if at all, like about those things in terms of, obviously you've been there, right? They're going to respect
Right.
like your opinion and your beliefs and maybe your own bouts and struggles and challenges that you dealt with. But how much do you
Right.
actually converse with them about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely, if it's someone that's hurt, and I'm spending all that time with them rehabbing, I definitely develop some pretty close relationships with them.
Yeah.
And so we do have a lot of conversations. I do use a lot of my experiences of, hey, this is where I was at that time. This is what I went through. I think one of the biggest things for me that I've found that they appreciate is, these girls are training so hard for the sport, and they are trying to please their coaches constantly, and that's tough to do.
Yeah.
In all worlds, but I feel like gymnastics especially.
Yeah.
But I think there's this line of like what they feel comfortable telling a coach and what they are feeling themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in that middle. So you have the coach over here that has these expectations. You have the gymnast over here that's feeling these feelings, and they don't know how to mesh that a lot of times. And so I feel like I'm this middle ground of, for me, I've had great experience with coaches. So they are very respectful. They listen to everything I say. If I say that the kid can't do something, there's not a question. It's not happening. Yeah. And so the kid may not be able to go up to the coach and say, hey, I don't feel like I can do my layouts today. But if I come in the middle and say, talk through the situation with the gymnast and figure out what's going to be best for their care, and then I deliver that message, then it's a whole different, ball game. And so I think that's something where I've really been able to, help them and kind of be the mediator between, them and the coaches.
How much so let me ask you this too, is like when you're dealing with the gymnast specifically, is it a larger percentage more for rehab or more for, because you do like prehab, right? In terms of the assessment, it's fine. Like, right. Hey, here's something going on. Like you got a weak upper back or your ankles are stiff. Like, hey, here, we need to do these things. So do you deal more on the rehab or the prehab side with them?
Really both. So with the prehab side, kind of the prevention, that's done twice a year, but it's typically just, one Saturday each time. And so.
And then do you give them things to do? Like when you say like, hey, here's 3 things that I find that are holding you back. Here's a list of, and then they just take it and run with it.
Right. Yeah. So at the end of the assessments, they're given a personalized list for them. It goes to the coaches, it goes to the parents, and then I keep a copy. And so it is a list of exercises that they specifically need to be working on to address the things that we found. And, they may not have a problem right now. They may not have an injury, but these things are aimed to prevent those things. And so, they work on those, throughout the year. And then, when we do that follow-up assessment, we kind of see, have those exercises they've been doing been helping? If they have, great. If not, if they still have deficits, we try to tweak things, advance things, and kind of keep working on those. And so, that's done twice a year as far as my input of that, but they're working on, their prehab throughout the year.
Are they pretty good about actually utilizing it?
Are they good about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are pretty good. So some of the gyms I've worked with, they actually give them time to do their own specific rehab. So obviously they have, all the conditioning that everyone is doing, but then they'll give them a separate time to, go do, your specific exercises. Yeah. And so I think when you have coaches that really appreciate and understand the importance of that part of the process, it does make it easier for the kids to buy in as well.
And then, so is it about half and half, maybe give or take, in terms of prehab, rehab, or prevention versus rehab?
Yeah, so I would say probably more rehab, just because it's, a longer process.
Yeah.
Once I've kind of done the weekend of the prehab, then that's kind of on them. So then more of my time is actually spent with the rehab part of it.
So what's the biggest like hurdles with them? And this is gonna like segue into like my big question of like what's the biggest hurdle with them in terms of like when you're rehabbing them from a psychological mental belief standpoint?
Yeah. So obviously with any athlete, they want to compete. And so when they get injured, you're taking them out of what they want to be doing. So I think each individual is unique though, and you have to kind of um, find out, what's important to them. You have some people that, they don't want to stop. And so they are going to try to push through everything, even if they're hurting themselves. And then you have, not often, but sometimes you do have some people who, maybe they're scared of something that they've been working on. And so now that they're injured, they get out of, working on this skill they've been scared of for a while. And so, I mean, you have to figure out their background of like what's going on in their mind and like, where is their motivation? Are they excited that they're getting a break from practice right now? And so they don't want to do a certain skill, or, are they actually needing to be slowed down because they are pushing through too much and just, continuing their injury?
So I had a conversation with another PT, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. And really this can be like answered in two different buckets in terms of like the athletes and the gym pop, or maybe there's some carryover. But we were discussing, because obviously, my focus and more of like the psychological side of things, and then her clear, much better knowledge in terms of like the physical side of things, in terms of like understanding the body and things like that. And so we were discussing, because I was like, we're talking about like the power of the mind, right? Like, and how that can weigh so much, and like the whole placebo concept, right? Like how you can get a fake surgery and like still come back just because you thought you got the surgery. And so I was like, how much do you see that like with people? And she was like, no, like it's definitely a thing. There's like some of these people that like talk themselves that they need to be in like this rehab for like way longer than they really do. So I'm curious, like, do you kind of experience the same side of things? And she was more like, I think, well, no, she was like athletes too. So do you see the same thing? And is there a difference between like the gen pop and like the athletes in terms of like telling their mind one thing in terms of like what their body can actually do? It's like, no, like you're okay. Like, it's okay. You don't need to be here anymore. What's your experience with that?
Yeah, I definitely have seen that. I think especially with like the bigger injuries, and sorry, my dog is trying to bark.
That's all good.
I think
welcome
especially
the dog to the podcast.
Yeah, I know. I'll have to bring him over for a debut. I think especially with the bigger injuries, your ACL, stuff like that, that's really where I see people actually get scared to go back. And so you really have to work on building their confidence of, hey, look what you're doing. You're doing it safely. You're doing it with good form. Like, you're ready to go back and try these skills, because that's really where they just doubt themselves, and I think they replay the injury of what happened before. And so that's really where I see like them struggle with the confidence and the mental part of returning to sport.
What about gen pop? I'm sure you got some stories with like gen pop people in terms of that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've seen my fair share of ones that are just scared to return to a skill. Maybe they didn't have it great to begin with, and so they are already struggling with a skill, but now they've been through an injury and they're really nervous about going back to that skill, because now they're almost relearning it, and they were never feeling completely confident with it in the first place.
So because you you enjoy sports, and then B, like you've been around like the athletic side of things too, for you, like what are the biggest differences in your opinion in terms of like the high performing athlete, the high level ones that are able to accomplish and achieve the things that they want. And then the ones that maybe have the talent, ability, maybe they don't, but like, what's that gap for you that you've seen, obviously being around it for over a decade, that you've noticed the most in terms of like the higher achieving and level performing ones versus the ones that aren't able to achieve the things that they want?
Right. I mean, I think it all just boils down to work ethic. Yes, people have different levels of talent, but I think at the end of the day, like, how much work are you willing to put in is, a bigger piece of that, than even the talent. So just seeing people who are 100% dedicated are going to go further than those that are just,
Yeah.
Just treating it like, hey, I enjoy it, I'm going to come and go and, move on. But, those who really, dedicate their time and energy into it. I think too, we're learning so much more these days about like the importance of nutrition and the importance of sleep and hydration and rehab and prehab and like, those are all things that when I was a gymnast, like, we didn't do those things. We didn't know those things. We just came to gym and left from the gym,
We ate Taco Bell before and after practice, and that was that.
Right. Yeah. And so I think, just someone who's like willing to, I mean, that's hard as a teenager to think about, oh, I need to go to sleep on time tonight and I need to eat the right foods. And so, you really do, if you want to be that high level, you really do have to make a full body decision to, be full in with that decision.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about that, like going to sleep on time. Is I don't remember if I was reading or listening the other day, and it was kind of like life hack, and it was the concept of, we set an alarm to wake up each morning. What if we started to set an alarm to go to bed each evening, right? Yeah. So we got that like consistent, and I was like, oh shit, like that's like really intelligent, like
right, yeah,
have an alarm to be like, take your ass to bed.
Right. Yeah. That's
so
smart.
What does for you, like what does confidence like mean to you as a person, and like as you're like preaching, so to speak, or talking or conversing with young adults, young kids, young athletes, and trying to help them develop that within themselves? Because at the end of the day, right, like that's the key to everything, right? Like you have to have some kind of belief in yourself, because if you're doing it for mom, dad, and coaches and everything else, at some point it just all comes crashing down because you're not making any decisions for you. So like what does that buzzword mean for you in terms of confidence?
Yeah. So I mean, I think confidence, I think it comes from knowing your purpose and being confident in your purpose. I think if you know your purpose and what you're trying to live out each and every day, then you're going to be confident in what you're doing on a daily basis. And so I think that's something that's really important is, we're all looking for our purpose in life, right? And trying to find that. And I think when you find it and know it and can live it out, like you're confident that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing each day. And so, for me, I think that my confidence lies in, I do feel like I have found something that I am very passionate about and that I really enjoy. And I think that, living that out on a daily basis just drives you in life.
So do you know your purpose? I'm calling you out now.
Do I know my purpose?
Yeah.
I mean, I think so. I think purpose, is continually changing. I think that it, doesn't have to be something that is, the same throughout your life. But, I think that, I find my confidence in who I was created by God for. And so, I'm living out my purpose of sharing about God with others. I'm living out my purpose in you know, my physical therapy and being able to help others and help others find their purpose and continue their purpose. And so I think when you have that purpose, you know, it makes getting up every day easy and makes
Yep.
getting up every day enjoyable.
So, couple questions, last questions, in terms of, so, and you can go with any route you want with this, is like, if you had to, like, if you had to drop one golden nugget for everybody in terms of like, whether it's circled around purpose, confidence, belief system, identity, whatever it was, like what would be like your one big nugget, your one big message for everybody?
Wow, okay, that's a big one. Let's see. So, I mean, I think right now, you know, different seasons of life teach you different things for sure. For me right now, I feel like through this like past year, I have been through probably some of the toughest things with work related that I've been through. And I think that, you know, we have plans for our life and we think we know what we want. And when that doesn't happen, it can be really hard. And, you know, you can feel like your whole world is crashing down. And so I think at that point, you really search for your true identity, you know, what makes you happy. You know, for me, I feel like my confidence comes from who I was created by and remembering that, you know, this world is not here to decide how important I am, how successful I am, that my confidence lies in someone far bigger than the world. And so just knowing who you're created by, who you're created for, and what that purpose is for. I think when things go bad, you know, those are the things that you can really hold on to.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like you said, true identity. I think like that's such a central theme, like for me and everybody. And I hope that's a big piece that everybody takes away too, is like that's the meaning of life to me, is like each day continuing to develop and asking that question, like who am, or those questions like who am I, is this really who I want to be, to really develop like your true identity, so you are living that. Because kind of like you said, at the end of the day, like nobody can tell you how much you're worth or how valuable you are as a human being, right? Like you get to look in the mirror every single morning and be like, I'm pretty damn badass, right? Like we get to make that decision. And that's like we have that freedom of choice. And I think so many people don't genuinely understand that, because in today's world, it's just so influenced by like external factors and things like that. And then we're hardwired to, you know, really doubt ourselves and doubt our own abilities and doubt everything that we believe in, doubt like how valuable we are, doubt how much worth that we have for the people around us. And that could be one person, that could be 1,000 people. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, like at the end of the day, that is the name of the game, is continuing to develop that true identity. And then just knowing how deserving and like worthy, like we already are. Like you don't have to do anything else right now. Like you already are like worthy and deserving.
Right.
Well, cool. Tell everybody if they have questions in terms of if they're listening, if they want to reach out, or if they want to continue to like, you know, follow you with, you know, valuable knowledge and information that you might share and post via like social media and things like that. Tell everybody where they can, you know, find you if they have questions or just find valuable information.
Okay. I guess probably the easiest way would be I'm on Instagram. So my name's Natalie Shannon. My Instagram is Nat4Bama, the number 4, several times. But yeah, so that's probably one of the easiest ways to track me down.
Cool. All right, rapid fire, last 3 questions. Favorite food?
Oh, Cajun. Do I pick one or just a
Yeah.
Cajun?
What Cajun food?
I love like blackened fish, we'll say.
Blackened fish. Favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby? Travel.
Oh, but that was the next question. Dream
Oh,
vacation spot.
what did you say?
Dream vacation spot.
That I've been or not been?
Anywhere in the world that you want to go.
Oh, goodness. Well, I went to Italy in 2018 and I've just been dying to go back. So I guess that would be, if we can take COVID away from this world, please, where I would love to go next.
Yeah. Well, cool. I appreciate you jumping on with me and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom in terms of like, it's always good to get different perspectives of like having both, because I think that they play a part in each other in terms of like the physical side of the body, so to speak, as well as like the mental side of the body. I think they just intertwine so much. And it's a big message that I have with everybody in terms of like thoughts and feelings, right? Like what you think about and then like what you feel, within your body plays such an important role in just continuing, like I said, to develop like who we are. So at the end of the day, hopefully everybody got at least one piece of information, one little nugget that they can take away. That's always the goal here is not to memorize everything, but what's one piece that you can, think about. It gets the wheel spinning a little bit in terms of as you walk away, or it's something that you can actually implement into your life today. So Nat, I appreciate it. Thanks again. And as always, can't wait to see you guys. Love you guys. Talk with you soon. Peace.
Thank you.